Today, we're going to be talking about the Glock $4 grip job. The reason why we're going to talk about this is because of the Glock grip. Many people that fire a Glock, especially people that have smaller to medium-sized hands, tend to find the Glock grip to be uncomfortable to fire. And there's a reason for this. When you look at arguably one of the most comfortable pistols to fire in history, it's the 1911. And when you look at the 1911 grip, you know, for example, in the past it was a single stack magazine, so therefore you can make the grip smaller. And with the dovetail safety, it actually has a protrusion out as well, so it actually becomes somewhat of a semi-rounded point. And where the real benefit of that is the impulse of the recoil into the hand. Now, the human hand has a meaty area in here, and then of course you have the joints on the side. And one of the reasons why people enjoy shooting the 1911 so much is because the impulse of the recoil is largely going into the meat of the hand, in between the joints. This is why people tend to tell you that this is one of the most comfortable pistols to fire in their hand. Now, common knowledge is when you go into a gun stores, they'll tell you, well, buy the gun that feels right in your hand. Well, I disagree. It should be the gun that recoils right in your hand. I've had a number of pistols that felt great in the store, but when I actually fired them and felt the recoil impulse, they were lacking what the guns like the 1911 can provide. And that's what you typically find with a Glock. Is the Glocks, of course, have double stack magazines. So first off, you've got a larger profile for the hand, for the actual grip. But the second part of it is you'll notice how much wider it is, especially in the back. It doesn't narrow to a semi-point, but rather it's almost blocky. And it comes to, obviously, in hard plastic as well. So when you look at the recoil impulse of the Glock in the hand, you'll notice that instead of going straight back into the meat of my hand, it's actually coming into the joints, especially to the joint of the thumb. And as a result of that, this is where people find Glocks to be uncomfortable to shoot, because you've got hard plastic and almost a semi-boxed angle coming straight into the actual joint and firing it. And this is why people, again, a lot of people with smaller, medium-sized hands tend to repulse from this feeling that comes from this corner of the gun coming straight into the joint of the hand. Now, there's a way to actually solve this, and the way to solve this is called the Glock $4 grip job. Now, there are a number of different grips you can buy in aftermarket, but you don't really need to spend that kind of money. All you need are the following. Go to Walmart or any bicycle store and buy this. It's at $3.88 before tax. You want the basic inner tube for a bicycle tire. That's all this is. You don't want the fancy, thicker tubes. You don't want the ones with the green slime on the inside to prevent leaks from bike tubes. You want this simple, basic tube that you can get from Bell. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take out your tube and you're going to start making cuts. Now, what I've done here and what I found works best for me is I make a cut that looks something like this. So I start cutting in and down around. And the reason why I want to do that is once it's actually pulled tight onto the grip, it's going to go up into the actual grip cavity and then loop down, giving me enough room for my magazine release catch to be able to operate. You'll also notice that I don't go any farther down to where the hump starts. There's two reasons for that. One is the Glock, when you actually fire a Glock, most of the recoil impulse is going to be right up in this area that we're talking about here. The other part is that's where the most critical elements of grabbing a gun are. So this also smooths out and makes it flatter with the hump as well. So what I like to do is cut a piece that looks like this and then stretch it up over the gun and place it onto the Glock. You might have to do this once or twice to get the cuts just right, but it'll look something like that. Now, the other thing I like to do is I like to build out the back of the grip so that I can try to simulate as best as possible the 1911 semi-pointed grip at the back. So instead of having it flat, I'm now going to build it out. And the way I do that is, in addition to pulling this piece up, I will actually pull it back and then cut two additional smaller pieces from my bicycle tube and lay them over the top of each other with the bigger piece at the bottom. To take a look at what this looks like, if I pull back right here on the 1911 or on the Glock I have, you can see these two pieces and they're overlaying themselves. and then I simply pull it up, and it tends to pull it tight. I don't use any adhesive to keep these in here. They tend to stay on, especially on the stippling of a Gen 4 Glock, they tend to stay very well, but I know some people will actually take maybe just a small drop of cement adhesive in between the plastic, but not touching the gun, just in between the pieces. But again, I don't advise doing that. Mine tend to hold just fine. So just these little 3 pieces right here alone. I find that a lot of people that claim that they hate shooting Glocks, that it feels wrong in their hand, I will have them fire this Glock and they will have a different opinion because of the $4 grip job. Not only does it make a rubber impact into the point of the hand, but it also builds it out again to stimulate or simulate the actual 1911 effect into the back of the hand. This works. I've seen a lot of police officers use these. I use them as well. The build out is, to me, the icing on the cake for a lot of people that don't like the feeling of a Glock in their hand, but this works and it's effective. Now the final thing you can do is, you'll notice a lot of Glocks, you want to hold them up as high as possible, will have this little point here on the trigger guard that will sometimes rub up against your hand. Well, there's a way also to remove some of that material as well. You can typically do it with a Dremel. That's what I did in this case. It only took maybe a couple minutes. You want to do it lightly because you don't want to remove too much of the material, just enough to make it comfortable enough to hold it up high enough in the palm. And then of course you can finish it out with some 220 sandpaper, which in this case here, again, looks very normal and very smooth for what I was able to produce. Just be careful with this, with the Dremel especially. Take off very small little bits at a time. You don't want to overdo this because you can't put that matter back on there. But that's another way to improve your grip as well. So in addition to the actual $4 grip job, a nice Dremel filing down here of the rounded area will make your Glock much more comfortable to shoot. So that is the Glock $4 grip job. If you like our channel, please like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, like us on YouTube, and thanks for watching.